Ooh. Bam! Lift off. Contributor appreciation. Welcome to the soapbox.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't hear anything either. Hold on.
I don't hear anything on here.
All right, let's see.
Did that work?
Yeah, it did work, but I know what's going on. But welcome to Contributor Appreciation. My name is Jamal Thomas. I am here with my lovely wife, Mrs. Aisha Thomas.
Hollingsworth Thomas.
Excellent, Hollingsworth Thomas. And we do the news, especially on Contributor Appreciation Days.
He does the news. I'm just here kind of chilling.
Well, on Contributor Appreciation Days, we both do the news. But I'm going to let her give her spiel, and I'm not going to interrupt.
Oh, thanks, babe.
Yeah, I'm going to let you do your thing.
It's Monday, and we are here for another episode of Contributor Appreciation. Once a week, we like to do a show to say thank you for everyone who contributes and everyone who supports the channel. So we put a post on the Patreon platform, and we ask you for your topic suggestions. Patrons come along, and they submit those suggestions, and that is where we pull today's content from. These are usually on a Sunday or a Monday to help you start your week off in the right direction. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you don't know what the Patreon platform is, it is it allows you to support a content creator. So if you notice, a lot of times Jamal's missing out on views because, like today, I didn't get a Google notification. YouTube doesn't tell me a lot of times when he's on air, so he misses views. And sometimes they'll take down the whole channel and all types of craziness. So if you want to make sure that Jamal or any, not any, but I guess most YouTubers have a Patreon, but you can support them directly. And you say, all right, I want to make sure he can continue to create content. I'm going to commit to X amount of dollars a month, $1 up to whatever you want to donate or want to contribute. And every dollar does help.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that link is in the description box if you're ever interested in the Patreon platform and being a patron. I think there's some new things. We always try to put content there, but nobody really sees it, and it doesn't get a lot of engagement, so we don't push it too much.
Asked last time, everybody just said,
just gonna leave it, that they never log in.
I think it was the poll was like massive. It was high up where people were like, yeah, dude, just show the content. We don't care.
But
it's like we're lefties, we don't care.
But if you are a patron, don't forget, weekly and any other time throughout the week, you can submit your topic suggestions for today's show. And if you're not a patron and you are giving through Streamlabs, Super Chat, PayPal, whatever it is, still thank you. And even if you are not giving monetarily, we still appreciate your support. Make sure that you are subscribed, and even though it is kind of finicky, hit the bell notification in the description box below so that when it does work, YouTube will let you know when he's live. I think that is a good segue into some channel updates that we want to touch on why people join the live stream. Also, just as a reminder, don't forget to, if you're enjoying the video, if you are chatting, give the video a thumbs up. It helps him know what kind of content everybody likes, and it also helps that YouTube algorithm. This is why we need to do this on days that I don't work. I'm dead by the end of the day. My brain is shutting down. It helps the YouTube algorithm let more people know that he's doing a live stream.
Yes.
And so if you're enjoying it, give it a thumbs up, share it, and all that good stuff. But to segue,
and subscribe and hit the notification bell.
I said that already. But to segue, I did say that. I said hit the bell notification icon in the description box below because sometimes it will work for me too. You were, but it's fine. But to segue into that, even if you get no notification, there are regular opportunities that you can come here to Progressive Soapbox.
Yes.
Jamal Thomas channel. And it was previously 12 to 2 p.m. Yes. But if you have been under a rock for the past 4 or 5 days, Jamal has moved from the 12 to 2 p.m. slot to the 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern slot on Sputnik Radio still.
Fault Lines.
Hosting Fault Lines.
Yes.
And that is 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. And it will live stream here through this channel, just like Political Misfits says. But Jamal was no longer the host of Political Misfits. He is working on giving you something else to fill that time slot since you guys liked it.
I want to fill that time slot. So I do want to fill that time slot. So I'm thinking of a show called No Allegiances. It was going to be initially what we considered naming Political Misfits, actually. So
I picked that name out.
Yeah,
I know Maggie Smith picked out Political Misfits, but the wife picked No Allegiances, but that was problematic because it's like on Sputnik and it's
it's awkward. So I did a video on this already, but basically I was on Political Misfits. Political Misfits was going fine. There was no issues with Political Misfits. I get a call that tells me that Garland and Lee were no longer on Fault Lines, and asked if I would take Fault Lines. Awkward, strange. Garland is a friend of mine, so right off the bat, I felt like you're sleeping with your friend's girlfriend or something. But I took the show, even though, I felt horrendous for what basically happened on the show. And, people gave their feelings on what they thought of everything that took place. We had somebody who called in on the show today who wanted to go after Medea, take the piss out of him. I had to shut that down. I was like, not here.
We're moving forward. We're moving forward.
Not here.
We're not focusing on all the stuff that happened.
Yeah, it's like, I feel you.
Yeah.
It pains me like nobody's business. You have no idea. It's very strange. You must understand, Garland got me on Fault Lines.
Yeah, if you're an OG, not even an OG, because that's only
it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but he started radio working
on Fault Lines.
He was a guest on Fault Lines on Radio Sputnik all the time, and Garland brought him on.
Month after month after month. I'm driving up to DC.
Yeah.
So it is painfully awkward to see him go on the channel like that. So
keep your eye out on Radio Sputnik for...
It's going to be from 7 to 10 a.m.
Right.
And we're going too far into it. But I am happy to have the show.
It's a longer show. If you didn't notice, it's 3 hours instead of the
but it goes by fast.
Previous 2 hours. It does.
It's like, it's the 15-minute slots. So that show is broken up in 15 minutes. So it's like bang, 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 bang. And it goes through. We do have bigger guests. We've had Chris Hedges. We've had Ben Swan, so forth. So the show is going extremely well. Shane Stranahan, the offspring from Lee Stranahan. What?
Just say son. That sounds...
I was trying to think of a fancy way to do it.
Just say son. It doesn't always need a fancy word.
It doesn't always come out.
That was awkward.
All right, you go for it sometime. Michael Jordan take a shot every time.
Okay.
So basically Shane has been killing it. I mean, we had 2 weeks of dry runs before we did our show, 2 or 3 weeks.
The original show, Political Misfits.
Political Misfits.
They prepped a lot for it.
Yeah, because it's like the first time we went for it, it was horrible. Like the very first week.
Well, you're dealing with two completely different personalities. They had never worked together before. It was new cues.
I know, but
the engineer's going to say this now, and then you got to do this. You got to get everything.
It was this kind of idea that I would be okay with it because I was on radio all the time. And that's
different. It's
different.
New.
Yeah, it's different.
Even when you started on, being a guest.
So I guess I'm saying that, say, Shane has been knocking that shit out the park.
And they didn't get those practice runs that they had.
Yeah, we haven't
because
had
they had to do the transfer.
Yeah. Immediately,
within 2 days while they were both still on air.
So we've had the third show, and I think our views are up to 1,000 or something.
Today was the first official show of it being yours. I mean, technically.
I'm in the shadow of better men.
Being yours. So.
That's what I think.
Please tune in, even if you don't get a notification. But that is the update. 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern every weekday. Tune in here for Fault Lines. And just as another update, because we are, Aquadark, we're still just getting started. But Fault Lines was kind of set up to be two opposing opinions. That's Fault Lines. And so some people, the first day when he aired it on, they were like, why is this guy talking? Like, it's not always going to be Jamal's views, because that's exactly what Fault Lines was set up to do. It's opposing views, and they want to present that. And so just keep that in mind. It is a little bit different in that regard. Different.
I had to even get that in my head around that, which is Political Misfits is Bob and I are out in a bar somewhere. We have our rebels where we're just, fucking around. And
what was that?
That's my weapon. It's like we're in the jungle with cowboys. We're, mucking around in the darkness. That's what Bob and I were. We were the men on the wall. That's what we were.
Confusing comparisons. Okay.
But it was like out there. We weren't necessarily part of anything per se. We're not part of the political parties. We're part of the political wilderness.
Political misfits.
That's better. Right, exactly. That's telling everybody to fuck off. This one is different. This one, you're still kind of out in the wilderness on that stuff, but because, you are you. but it's more combative. I had to wrap my head around the notion that it is called fault lines. And, the thing with Lee and Garland, they were able to get along for like 3 years. Like, you guys, if you've seen what took place in Fault Lines, it was fuckery towards the end.
We're not going to get into all that.
Yeah, we're not going to get into it.
But
I would say...
that is the premise of the show.
Yeah, that's the premise of the show.
That's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure you got that out there because looking at, and sometimes I moderate the chat on these, and so I hear what people are saying. And that first day when you put Fault Lines on your channel and somebody called in with shenanigans, and people were in the chat was like, let me call in. What's the call-in number? I got to take this guy out. Like, they were like, why are you giving him a platform? I'm leaving. I don't want to listen to this schmuck. And just keep in mind, when you tune in, that show is designed to give opposing views. It is Fault Lines for a reason. So
you have to give people their view. Like, if it's something that somebody's saying that I disagree with, I just say, it's like, hey, like Ben Swan today, I was like, dude, I don't disagree with that. Or Tom Luongo, I was like, you can't seriously be saying, like, you push back because you make it clear that I don't agree with this, but he's going to get his say. Otherwise, he's not going to come on the show.
Yeah.
There was the other woman on Political Misfits. They got mad at me. She said, it was one of the guests, and her thing was, she was like, I kept interrupting her, and then she added that extra bit of dickishness with, and your intro was too long. It's like, are you criticizing my intro? But she's an awesome guest, so it wasn't. I felt bad that she was annoyed by it. Look, push back, and sometimes the guests don't always necessarily like the fact that you're pushing back. And
if you are an OG listener of Jamal's, he will and has a habit of engaging the audience. Like before, you would spend a lot of time in the chat after the shows. You don't do that as much.
I don't have time because immediately after Michelle typically calls.
No, not on those shows. On your own personal shows when you're here. You used to engage on the chat sometimes, and if you've been here for a while, he'll have the hard conversations. So that's all I'm trying to say. But let's move on.
Yeah, those conversations are good though. Like when we were talking to Luongo's always interesting because him and I. He's a libertarian, so it's always going to be half of the stuff we agree on. Libertarians are odd cats. It's like you be talking about, I agree with that, and then the other part is like, whoa, your ideology is going too far. That type of stuff. So him and I always get into these interesting conversations, some back and forth, because I always disagree with the levels to which he believes things are being pulled. But he gives a good arguments for it. He makes his points. But it's back and forth. I mean, it's just kind of that show. Every so often, you would have somebody on like Richard Wolff. I love Richard Wolff. I don't know what I would disagree with Richard Wolff on. Yeah. But it would be deeply satisfying if I did. Be like, I got him on that point. It is Monday at 5:59. You said it was 5:58, buddy. Fuck you.
Don't forget, if you're enjoying the show, if you're excited for the show, give it a thumbs up. We only have 62 people here on this Monday evening. Do we want to go into the first story?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's do the news. So, cops being cops. I was reading this New York Times story, and I thought this was slightly funny, but for the horrible and not for the best of reasons. So, right here. This is... why was a grim report on police-involved deaths never released? Now, what she makes the point in saying is that basically New York has been miscounting their deaths by half. By half. The number of people that the cops have been killing in New York, they were getting the number by reported half.
I'm not surprised by that. Why has it not been reported? Because
there is a disincentive in reporting.
It's a grim report. Why didn't anybody hear this grim report? That sounds kind of self-explanatory. It's
a grim report. I mean, they might as well name it Grim Report. They eventually got their hands on that report and they started investigating that stuff. So on Monday morning, let's see, they make, where is it? Right here. The Bassett team identifies 105 people killed by the police or police activities during the period between 2010 and 2015, more than double The 46th agency had publicly reported those years of unreported deaths. 13 bystanders were hit by police bullets or pedestrians killed from vehicle accidents during police activity. The team also found deep racial disparities in the deaths.
Go figure.
Go figure. For example, 6 black New Yorkers and Hispanics, 5 Hispanic residents who died as a result of encounters with the police during which this period were unarmed. No unarmed whites were killed. It's amazing how they can find that morsel of restraint when dealing with somebody who's white. Not all the time. I mean, that amputee, they gave no fucks to him at all. It's like, you motherfucker, give me your legs! And just running off with his legs. You're like, look, Ted, I got his legs. Isn't this the funniest shit ever? Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. A cop, apparently, a double amputee was involved in a protest, Columbus, Ohio. And the cops beat him up, pepper sprayed him, and took his legs and left. And I was like, there's no way this story is true. There's no way this story is true. And I went looking for more research, and I see TMZ, and then I see the video, and I'm like, oh. And the guy's just kind of laying there like,
Don't.
And then they're like, the guy's screaming for him. I was like, bah! Bah! It's like a war zone. It's horrible to watch. I'm not even going to show you. It's horrible to watch.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
I showed the video before, and it's like, oh, dude, I can't show this. This is horrible. Why would you do that? Like, is it just, I'm angry at you because you're protesting, and how dare you even come out here with you want me to feel fucking sorry for you? I'm an equal opportunity abuser. And then just leaves with his legs? Is that what it is? He just wants to show that he's not racist, sexist, or bigoted in any way. So
this was a white guy too, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who the culprit is. I mean...
No. I mean the...
Oh, yeah, the guy was a white guy. I keep telling you, your white skin is not a defense. Especially at these protests. Those cops they're cracking heads, man. I really do think to some degree they're pissed off that they're out there. Like, because, I mean, think of it from the cop's perspective for the moment. You're a human being. As a human being, you have a tense situation of people who are yelling, cursing, maybe throwing shit at you, and you're an agent of the state trying to defend this unequal system that you yourself are a part of in that unequal system. Meaning you're the poor that's paid to bash the heads of the other poor. And you're out there, you're like, motherfuckers, you're fighting the back. Just by definition, you're going to feel some kind of way as a person, right? But that doesn't matter. I mean, even though I understand there's this natural human tendency to be really pissed off. It's like you invade Iraq. And in invading Iraq, they fight back. One of their soldiers killed one of your friends. And you're like, you motherfucker! How dare you kill my friend? It's like, you invaded my fucking country. You killed 1 million of my countrymen. What the fucking wrong with me? It's the same thing with the cops, right? They're out there. Maybe they're getting pissed off. They're angry. They're tired. People are yelling at them. They're pushed back. Their job is to push these people back. And maybe they're pissed off at the scrutiny to some degree. And they take it out on the protesters.
Just really quick while we're on this, Buck the banjo player commented and says, as a disabled person, it is 100% okay to fuck with, tease, hit, slug, bop, or otherwise accost a disabled person.
Equal opportunity, right?
I guess so. ID Warp says, dude, cops threw a flashbang into a crib.
Yeah.
And burned a baby.
That's hardcore. Like, that's hard fucking core. And so this is kind of the point I'm getting at. So at the end, they say this, and I love this because this is the most naive thing I've ever heard in my life. The findings, which could have changed the practices and saved lives, never saw the light of day.
You're talking about the report.
Yeah. They honestly believe that report was going to change lives. Like, you
so
fucking
So they're trying to say that if that grim report that showed 101 deaths as opposed to 46 deaths had been released, then maybe
they would have changed something. Do you realize cops kill 1,000 people a year in the United States? Do you think that people are unaware of the number of people that cops kill? Do you think there's a problem with that or not? Like, say, for example, that number is 46. And you get 1,000 people across the United States that are killed by cops. UK, 3. You don't think there's a problem with that number, even if you didn't get that report? Like, do you really need a report to say, hey, cops are killing a lot of people? To notice the number of people? Like, I just find, like, it's just ludicrous to me that you would need that report to say that. Look, we found when Obama sent Eric Holder, I think it was in Ohio and I think it was in Maryland, that they were criminalizing poor locations and running their town off of much of the money that they would get from it. So think of it as they were going to, let's say, Highland Park. Maybe not Highland Park, the worst areas of Highland Park. And the cops would put more emphasis on that because the town needs revenue.
More money.
And because it doesn't want to get the revenue from its rich residents, it just says, all right, we'll criminalize the poor. So all of the traffic tickets, the fines, the parking meter stuff, all that stuff goes in overdrive in order to make sure those people are forced to pay fines. They were doing that in poor neighborhoods in both places. And then you have debtor prisons because sometimes these people can't pay. Like, oh, that's so fucking aggravating. No, that report wouldn't have done a goddamn thing. Do you realize the chokehold that killed Eric Garner
was illegal?
It was already outlawed. And what you're saying, like, hey man, I'm going to put a rule in that says cops got to police other cops. So if they think that cop is murdering that guy, the cop needs to stop. So it's like, wait, if you think that the cop is murdering somebody, the cop doesn't know that the cop should stop the other cop? He's not a policeman? Isn't he supposed to save the guy's life too? Or does the guy forfeit his life the moment that that guy, who's a cop, starts, getting into that murderability mode? That's what it's called, murderability.
It's not a word, but okay.
That's a word. That's what cops do. Murderability. The rate.
Maximum justice.
Maximum justice. But there are times where it's less than maximum justice. Like that handicapped guy. That was a maximum justice, but that was pretty fucked up justice. Right. And notice when we're saying justice here, we're making a mockery of it on purpose. It's like justice. That report wouldn't have done a goddamn thing. Because you have videos like this. Take a look at this. This is a few years ago.
And let me ask you,
what happened to these cops after this video?
Probably, I'm sure nothing.
He's breathing. I'll make sure you're still breathing. Yeah. His nose is buried in there. I think he's still breathing. He just snorted. Tony. Stop cold. What the fuck? Is he asleep? He's asleep. He's snoring, that's what it was.
Yeah, he's asleep.
Tony.
Tony!
Hey, time for school. Wake up.
I don't want to go to school.
First day, you can't be late. Tony.
We bought you new shoes for the first day of school. Come on.
Made breakfast, scrambled eggs, favorite.
With waffles.
Waffles.
Fruity, tutti, fruity waffles. I think he's out cold now.
Yeah, this might wake him up. I don't know, he just got quiet.
All of a sudden, he just whoop.
The dark kid? Oh, there he comes. Sound like he was snoring. I hear him. Is that dark kid? Oh, the Green Oaks cocktail, like Is he knocked out, or he ain't dead, is he?
Nah, he just moves.
Oh, okay.
I think.
That was a little freaky. He didn't just die down there, did he?
I don't think he did.
Is he breathing? Hope I didn't kill him. It's all this weed shit.
Oh, laugh it up. You did kill him. They cracked jokes as they stood on a guy and as that guy died.
And not to mention, they say that, okay, I have a couple problems. This is wrong on so many fucking accounts, but the thing said that the paramedics came and gave him a sedative. He wasn't moving.
He was already out.
Why did you give him a sedative?
I have no
And
idea.
as they were trying to wake him up, he was still kneeling on his back.
Yes. Yes.
and holding him down. And
Oh,
the person behind him
also had his legs
was
tied.
holding him down as well.
He also had his legs tied. Tim Tempo, believe it or not, he called the cops. He told the
I
cops
do remember this. This is
that
from a year or so ago.
didn't have
right?
his medications. Yeah, he didn't have his meds. And he's off his medications. The cops came, and that's what happened. Now, those two cops got off. They got basically what the cops said was, we were just trying to use strategy to get him to respond to us. And the jokes that we were cracking and when we were laughing at him wasn't meant to deride him in any way. It was strategy to get him to respond because he wasn't seeming to respond. That man cried for help 30-something times, and they just stood there cracking jokes and knuckling him under. I didn't show you the part where he was screaming. That's
I think I've seen
that much worse.
I think I've seen the beginning of this video.
They rap on the knuckles. No jail time. Those guys are walking free, and if I'm not mistaken, they're probably still on the force. And I can show you a video where the same police force is taking a knee in support for Black Lives Matter. I suppose that guy's white, so, maybe that doesn't count for them. That's fucking horrendous. A mental health worker should have been the one who's engaging that guy, not necessarily the blunt force of the law. Do we really need all of our engagements to be this level of force and submission? And you realize that level of force and submission invites response. Meaning, when you see all of these protests, that's a response. When you see people demonizing cops, that's a response. And that response is built up from a deficit of sorts of all the shit that you put on all of these people when you're doing shit like that. That's what that's coming from. That asshole in New York, my badge is a stain. This badge is a stain. You haven't seen that guy, the little short guy in New York. Yes, your badge is stained. If your badge wasn't stained, those people wouldn't be out there. What about that? I understand that's in a different state. Doesn't matter. That could have happened in New York. And I would imagine it probably has in some capacity happened in New York, seeing the number of people that you guys have killed, potentially murdered, and pretended as if those people weren't actually people. That's fucking horrendous. And I have to be honest with you. I would wager to you that has visited every state. 1,000 people. Put that in perspective.
Yeah, this isn't a singular incident.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's really not. And that's kind of the point of it, right? The fact that person says, we could have changed the policy if no, it wouldn't have. Just stop. It wouldn't have. It wouldn't have. It wouldn't have at all. If you want to stop that, if you want to defund cops, I'm telling you the way to do this is to go through poverty. And I say that because your society, believe it or not, if it's a bad neighborhood, many of the people in those neighborhoods are not going to want to get rid of cops. I'm telling you, I understand that many of the people who are activists and who are saying this, they firmly believe it, yes. And I would say that those people in those neighborhoods will want those cops not to act belligerent, would not to act like force, would like to have social workers as opposed to this kind of blunt force of law. But this notion of getting rid of cops, they're not going to hear it. Some of their neighborhoods are particularly bad, which gets to my point. Those people would be perfectly okay with this notion of getting rid of cops if they didn't think they need cops. If you were in a better neighborhood, this notion of, I need a cop here, I need somebody, some blunt force of the law to protect me from something. Yeah. The very fact of a neighborhood saying, I need cops, is a failure of your society to provide the resources to provide basically a security for that neighborhood. If you take a neighborhood that is in poverty, that has high crime, that has a high propensity or a high death rate, let's say a high propensity for people to die earlier in life, high mortality rates. Take that, put it in a rich neighborhood, those things go away. Just statistically, they just go away. If that holds true, then your issue is poverty. I'm not saying this gets rid of all of your issues. And of course, you need to do things to curb the murderability of cops. Meaning the degree to which, or the window to which cops feel that they can maximum justice. That needs to be narrowed. Because right now, that window is basically wide as all hell. And they get away. 99% of the cops from 2013 to 2019 that have been involved in a shooting have gotten off. Wasn't even charged. Didn't result in a crime. Of the 1% that did get charged, 32% got charged or got convicted. Of that 32% that got convicted, 36% served jail time. Think about what that means. Of 1%, a third gets convicted. And of that third, another third goes to prison.
So basically like 2 in a year.
That means
for the whole country.
That a cop could basically murder in no issue. Like there's
with no consequences.
No consequences. And we've already seen that basically creating a law that's saying, hey, if you see Bob murdering somebody on the job, you got to stop Bob. And you're like, wait, you're telling me that Bob didn't know that? You didn't know that you should stop him from
You didn't know that Bob shouldn't be killing people?
Yeah. I mean, if you have some guy on the ground and that guy's not moving, he's unresponsive, you have him in handcuffs, maybe stop being on his neck. How about not being on his neck in the first place? Hey, maybe check for that guy's pulse. Maybe consider that that person is actually a human being. I understand that cops deal with people on their worst of days. That's your job. You chose that job. I get it, but that guy was having a bad day. Full stop. What's his name? Brooks. Damn it, where is he? What is it? In Atlanta. He was having a bad day. These people are having bad days when they're dealing with cops. Fair enough. But that's expected because they're cops. And they're not going to be there unless the situation has devolved into something that is basically slightly abnormal. So that can't in and of itself be an excuse for their murderability window to be that wide. You still have to consider that that person has loved ones and people that care about that person. And that despite it being a bad day, would want that person to go home. If you have to arrest that person, fair enough. If you have to subdue that person, fair enough. But can you at least bear a morsel of humanity in the individual to which you're involving yourself with? And I gotta be honest, the black disparity thing is obscene. I'm sorry, in some of those places, they were like 7 times more likely to be killed if you were black. And, this idea that, there are bad neighborhoods. Okay, those might be bad neighborhoods, but that still doesn't entirely explain it. I mean, people looking at that are like, whoa, that doesn't explain it at all. I've seen cops have their gun taken from them by a white guy, wrestle on the ground with the guy.
And still be fine.
And still not kill a guy. I've seen them have a mass murderer and take him to get a hamburger before going into the... It makes us feel like our lives have no value. The Black Lives Matter thing, that assertion, is the same thing like I am a man back during the Civil Rights Movement. It's this idea that there's a deficit in the way that we believe you see us from the standpoint of society in regards to value, which makes an affirmative case of Black Lives Matter. This is not to denigrate any other life, which needs to be understood. People like to say all lives matter, but they fucking miss the point. The whole point of the Black Lives Matter thing is not to say my life is more than yours. The opposite of that. It's the understanding or the belief that there is a deficit in the belief of how much you value our life. Not that our lives is more, but for the most part, that our lives should be equal.
Right.
It's as if you're at a 10 and we're at a 7 and we're saying we need to come up to 10 and you need to value us as such. That's not the same thing as our lives matter more than yours. Bow before black supremacy. Which is what these shallow right-wingers sometimes castigate the movement as, not understanding what that means at all. When Obama had to come out and cow himself in this kind of sad, pathetic way and saying, okay, here's my birth certificate. I mean, you had this indignity of the first black president having to prove that he's an American. Oh, how low is that?
And even after that.
And even after that, we want to see your college records.
Him,
yeah, like this nonsense.
Is he a Muslim?
Him having to do that is shameful. It just is. But Black Lives Matter, it's also shameful for them to have to do that. It's an indignity to have to come out and say our lives matter as much as yours. You shouldn't have to say that. It should be just understood as human beings. However, there's a deficit here. We can be killed in the streets. You can have yahoos in their pickup trucks that just shoot down joggers. I mean, for fuck's sake. And by the way, right-wingers who make this argument, well, hey, maybe he was robbing a house.
I don't give a fuck what he was doing.
Even if that's true, I don't give a shit. I mean, for fuck's sake, they murdered him in the street. I mean, random yahoos murdered a man, drove him down in their pickup truck, shoots him down as if they're a Klan rally back in the 40s. And one of the people that are there are not disheveled by this. They're not freaked out by this. They're not bothered by this. In fact, they're so enamored by what is taking place, they take pictures and put it on Snapchat. How depraved. How depraved of a human being do you have to be? If Aisha murdered somebody who was standing right there, I gotta be honest, I'd be a little shooken by that. Maybe. It depends on the person, on whether or not they deserved it. If my wife did it, I would assume that they deserved it because I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But still, it'll take a moment. How do you take a picture of somebody else's pain and misery and put that up there like that? Like, it's just so degrading. Like, in regards to how doing that, and I'm no conscious of that. I guess I'm just making the point that gets across this notion that our lives aren't valued. The fact that Breonna Taylor's killers, those cops that burst into a house illegally and murdered her, shooting 8 bullets that ripped her body apart of the 20 bullets that shot her. She was asleep in her underwear. I mean, we're not safe in our homes. We're not safe jogging. Clearly, we're not safe in dealing with cops in any real measure. There's a problem there. And there seems to be a deficit because the cops get off. And if they're charged at all, Black Lives Matter is not a black supremacy thing. It's the opposite. It's an insecurity of sorts. But the insecurity is not born out of just nothingness. It's born out of what seems to be a deficiency in regards to the way this society values and views black lives. I hope people understand that. And maybe they don't understand that. Maybe right-wingers doesn't necessarily get into it, but they get the core, like the emotion part of that. Maybe I should do a video on that just in and of itself tomorrow for the monologue. Because I think they fundamentally missed that. I've heard right-wingers make arguments like black supremacy and whatnot. Like
right, and that saying Black Lives Matter is racist.
Yeah, it's like all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter, but you missed the point in saying that entirety. And then all lives matter takes on this kind of weird racist tint because of, the Black Lives Matter thing. Look, cops, be better people. Just be better. If you engage with me, can you just give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm a person? And that maybe not on this particular day that I might be bugging the shit out of you, that I might be a pretty decent human being, even if you don't like me. Maybe somebody else likes me. But that is not your job to murder me. And that if you do that, you have gone terribly awry. Because I promise you, I would have done nothing for you to do that. I don't even have a gun on me.
Also, I think it was Russian Bot in the comments that just said, by the way, don't forget that in America, technically, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
So even if you come to a scene where I have a gun in my hand and somebody's dead on the floor, you
should get the presumption
right
that you're not doing anything
and even
wrong.
If I was guilty and I had committed a crime and gone to jail for it and I escaped jail and now I'm running down the street, you are still not the executioner. That is not your job. So it's...
that's what people don't understand.
And like they say, there's people in the comments saying what I've seen parroted all over the place now is even cops aren't supposed to shoot the guilty people either. Right. They're not supposed to kill guilty people either, even if I'm guilty.
Because right-wingers are like,
warrant being shot down. He shouldn't have been fighting.
Yeah.
Was he really selling those drugs? Yeah. Was he really, pushing fake checks? I don't know a damn what he was doing.
He looked like he was groggy when he was dealing with... None of it matters. It's not their job. Period. I understand that you could say that the chances of death increase when a person wrestles with the cop. Agreed. I think that's a bad idea. I understand that you could say the chances of a person dying goes up if they run away from a cop. Fair enough. But the question becomes, should that be that way? I understand that the chances will go up, but both of those things, from the standpoint of the right, are considered murderable offenses. Meaning, if a cop kills a person in any of that situation, regardless of whether or not they had logical, rational responses that they could have taken that would have otherwise gotten out of that situation without killing that particular person, that is still a killable offense. Well, the cop, what was he going to do? What was he going to do? Maybe he made a mistake, but the guy shouldn't have fought. Oh, that guy was cashing a check. Oh, that person was doing this. That person was doing that. And it's like, yeah, but were there any other rational responses that cop could have taken that would have got them out that situation without that guy dying? And if the answer is yes, then maybe that cop fucked up. And maybe the window of murderability needs to be readjusted where cops have a clear idea of, hey, maybe murdering shouldn't be my go-to. Maybe I need to have other procedures in place where rational action and rational thought in regards to human life being the highest priority, maybe that needs to matter. And right now, that doesn't seem to take place, especially in the context of Black lives. So, yeah, those Black Lives Matter protesters are out there for a reason. And by the way, it's not just for blacks. Even though you might say Black Lives Matter, cops and the procedures that take place also is used on whites, especially the poor. If these protests doesn't make that clear, I don't know what will. And so, whatever we get out of it, and I hesitate to say we because I think it's a person or we as a nation thing, it's for everybody. It's no situation where they're going to say, okay, we're going to put in police policy specifically for blacks. That's never going to happen.
On a lighter note.
Go for it. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. I'm sorry to go there right away, but
on a lighter note,
I was bothered by reading that.
Meg says, I just want to know about the poor crow. I have an inordinate fondness for crows. I told him before the video started. The title says police pepper spray crow.
I ran out of letters.
That means you're using too many
words. All right.
But no, we're not doing a story about a crow being pepper sprayed, but as if the world is not jacked up enough.
Oh, that's funny and sad. That's so funny.
All right, can we go to the first contributor appreciation topic?
Yes, we can, but let's go to a light one first, and then we go to first appreciation. Sean King said something that I thought was really interesting.
Interesting?
So, people have been pulling down statues. The Christopher Columbus statue in Richmond, Virginia got chucked into the river. We've had statues in Britain that got pulled down. There was a statue, I think, fell on somebody. Somebody got shot at one of the things in New Mexico where some kind of right paramilitary guy goes in and tries to stop people who are pulling down the statue of a guy who chopped off feet. And so the question becomes, it gets subjective, right? At which point does a statue where you say, whoa, too far? Because it's like Me Too.
Maybe you say that at the Jesus statues.
Do you say that at Jesus? Should white Jesus come down? If he existed, what's black? I mean, he could fit in Egypt, which was black. Yes. So, is it sacrilegious to have a white Jesus, especially for the impact that it has on blackness? Because understand, during the time of after slavery and whatnot, your entire society transformed itself and organized itself around this notion that you're inferior. And the structure of the society, be it art, literature, education, even depictions of Jesus, are going to get that across to you. So when you look up and you on your knees, the man you're looking up to is a white man with blonde hair. White Jesus. Now, seeing that we look at some of that stuff now with the black faces being horrendous, we look at some of the things that they used to say. We don't like the term in, etc., or even Negro, or even colored. Those terms have been thrown to the dustbin. We've decided that those things aren't just. And now we're having a thing where NASCAR's saying we're not going to put the Confederate flag up. We have many people saying we're going to remove statues of Columbus and some of these Confederate statues because, for obvious reasons, they were a band of terrorists who tried to take over the U.S. government. And so, if we are indeed looking at our society and saying, what is the other side of that story and how does that other side of the story affect us? Well, white Jesus, especially in the context of religion, is a domineering figure from the standpoint of an African American who can't see his own image reflected in the God to which he worships. And the same thing happens on a lesser level when you're looking at art and you're looking at television, and the only figures you see of blacks are servants and butlers and maids and inelegant in the way that they talk. Those are the figures that you're seeing in those movies. And so you look at your world around you, and the thing that's reflected back to you is that you are somehow inferior, and that your station in life is basically a function of that. Now, I don't think people realize how damaging that is, And so people give that a pass as if that is a nothing. When Langston Hughes came out with like Negroes in Vogue, because you had Harlem Renaissance, and White was like, whoa, those Negroes are actually people. I didn't know that they had lives. They're like this.
Okay,
like
wait.
I'm making the point that these things affect us, like in real tangible terms. And so I'm asking, since white Jesus is an artifact of that, should white Jesus come down?
I think you just spent 2 minutes really trying to make this fit.
No, I think it's legit.
Do you think that they should take the white Jesus statues down?
I don't know. I thought it was an interesting conversation. Because the thing is, white people may want to worship white Jesus, right? Like, so can you really take a statue down that one group wants? Like, for example, you can make a strong case to say Columbus was, atrocious to have as a statue. You can make a strong case to say the Confederates, who basically wanted to hold slaves, were pretty horrendous. White Jesus becomes a little bit more strange to me in regards to rip down.
Let's get into the conversation.
Wait, you're not interested in white Jesus people though?
I want to hear other people.
Oh, go ahead.
Fred Edwards said Jesus wasn't the colonizer or slave owner. Focus, people.
Right.
Monetizing Dissent says white plastic Jesus. Hunter Rivera said like Jesus was an Arab that stood out of all Arabs. Hunter Rivera. Jamal wears shirts from every place that we've been, every place that he's been to. He's asking why.
So Germany.
Why are you wearing Germany shirts?
I wear all of them.
All kinds of things. Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. Jesus likely never actually existed as a person. Jesus was fictional.
Yeah. That could be true.
Meg says it actually doesn't matter. Religion is ridiculous. History is fact. Confederate monuments are so much different than religious symbology. It just can't be on public property. I think that's kind of how I feel. Yeah. Thank you, Meg. I think that's kind of how I feel. Somebody else said, I don't have a dog in the hunt. That's kind of how I feel too. Yvonne said, even my church taught he wasn't white.
It's funny but most of the churches, when people were growing up in those Southern Baptist churches, he was lily white. It's funny. The religion, well, he was. It was like people were worshiping, white baby Jesus. It's like, please, white baby Jesus, I need $5 of my rent money. Please let that lotto ticket come through. No, I feel you. Look, the religious thing, it's always a wild card. I mean, if we're being very honest, capitalism is just religion. I mean,
how much money does religion bring in a year?
It's a ton of cash.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just saying, it's just a thought form. It's just an organization of thought that people have of, I think it's ridiculous myself. By the same token, religion has an odd quirk that allows people to kind of see over something with faith that they wouldn't necessarily see in normal circumstances. Like, if you're looking at it from a rational standpoint, you may think slavery is going to be here forever. Just, because you can't see over the edge. You can't see the corners. Whereas a religious person may say, no, God will make a way. Or the arc of history is long, but it bends towards fairness or something to that effect. I think that's why you have like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Both of those guys are coming out of religious tradition. Same thing with some of the leaders that are in other countries, religious clerics. I do think there's something to that. By the same token, movements, I guess, can do the same thing. But those things often are movements in and of themselves. Like the Poor People's Campaign. It's a church. He's a doctor. I mean, he's like Martin Luther King in the way that he talks and what he's trying to accomplish. Again, that's a religious thing. I don't know if it's just that the religion cares about, or should care, if it's really being true to itself, about the core ideas of, health, happiness, making sure I care for the poor, that type of stuff. I don't know if it's that or what, but they do have an effect. Look, I agree that religion can be kind of wild. I don't know about the pulling down to white Jesus, though.
For some reason, it doesn't bother me, but for some reason, it does. I can't really articulate why, but I'm just like, really? And like I said, maybe it's because I'm not really religious and I don't have a dog in the hunt.
Yeah, but white people, white people can't worship white Jesus. I mean, just at the most
also,
basic
I've seen plenty depictions of Black Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's not what you have in your home or in your church.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between historical
I feel like that's a
precedent
little different than
versus-
religious
Yeah, I agree.
representations of
I think it's too far.
Jesus.
Sean King, I think he's being, too hyperbolic on this stuff. On that, I don't think you can take down white Jesus. I mean, let white Jesus do what he does. But I think historical depictions are real things.
The law says down with black Jesus too.
Take down all Jesus. I'm going to show the destruction of Elizabeth Warren's credibility, if she had any left.
Oh God!
In one
Please
tweet.
wait. I thought we had like some kind of unspoken agreement that I would never have to listen to Elizabeth Warren again.
Oh, I'm not going to let her talk.
Okay.
She's not going to talk. I'm just going to.
Okay.
Show-
I thought there were divorce papers drawn up over Elizabeth Warren.
Just
I don't want. Okay. Okay. Go
Elizabeth
ahead.
Warren ruining her credibility. One tweet.
Okay, go ahead.
One tweet. All right, so let's start here. Elizabeth Warren is proud to endorse John Hickenlooper, Senate, Colorado. Oil and gas, private donors paid for initiatives in Hickenlooper's administration finds. Ooh, that's uncomfortable. John Hickenlooper violated Colorado's gift ban state ethics commission rules. Okay, this is 2 tweets. I lied. One more.
We have
Hickenlooper backing ICE deportations.
transferred, communicated over 8,000 names in the last couple of years to ICE. These are names that we're suggesting here that people we have in custody that are, don't have documentation, and they don't have the resources.
ICE, deportations, Hickenlooper, on board to help. And then you have this. Elizabeth Warren's crusade against corruption. But that's interesting. If she has a crusade against corruption, how is she endorsing a guy that just violated gift banned state ethics commission rules? And more importantly, that oil and gas private donors pay for initiatives that Hickenlooper's administration investigation funds. That's uncomfortable. He seems corrupt. And yet Elizabeth Warren is backing this corrupt person. And yet she has a crusade against corruption. There is another person who's running against Hickenlooper who actually has bumped up in the polls because Hickenlooper has basically been nearly fumbling this thing, supposed to be a layup. She could have endorsed that guy. She could have backed that guy. Especially,
Who was that guy?
I don't know the guy's name. I can't think of the guy's name. But I do know I have watched the race, even though I don't know the exact names of the people in the race. But Hickenlooper, there's a person in the race that has started to bump up in the polls that is somewhat of a lefty in that case.
ID Warp says Hickenlooper went all in on fracking.
Yeah, right.
Fred called him Fracking Looper.
Right. I guess that's my point. She's backing a guy that she didn't have to back Hickenlooper. She didn't have to do that. And yet, burning through her credibility at the speed of light, Elizabeth Warren. That's if, again, she had any left. Let's go to the first topic.
Oh, no, thank you. No more. Okay. Woo! All right. So we got 147 people here. Somebody asked who I was. My name is Aisha, a.k.a. Mrs. Progressive Soapbox, a.k.a. Mrs. Jamal Thomas. I think that's all my AKAs.
Yeah. You don't want to have too many aliases.
What I have a lot. We're not gonna go down that line. We're not gonna go down that road. But this is contributor appreciation once a week, either on a Sunday or a Monday. Typically, we like to start the week off saying thank you to everyone who contributes to Jamal's channel, and so we put a post on the Patreon platform and we asked patrons to give their topic suggestions, and we pull that information to fuel today's content. So don't forget, if you are a patron, log in, submit your topic suggestions each and every week. And for everyone who contributes via PayPal, Streamlabs, Super Chat, still thank you. And even if you haven't gave one penny, still thank you. Make sure that you are subscribed.
Gave a like.
Right. Make sure that if you're enjoying the video that you give it a thumbs up. It helps YouTube's algorithm let more people know that we are live. And it also helps Jamal know what kind of content that you like. I'm just here for this particular episode. Yeah, so if you're enjoying the content so far, if you're chatting, I kind of feel like if you're chatting, you're enjoying the show.
I think so, yeah.
So you should give it a thumbs up. That's just how I feel. I mean, like, if you are that invested where you have pulled up the chat box and you are engaging and you're talking to these awesome people here.
I want to give my audience and myself, by extension, a pat on the back. Honestly, I don't know if you've seen some other chats. I never used to be involved in chat stuff. Like, so when I started my channel, I was always weirded out by how it's a community.
You're the only person that I watch live. I've never watched another live video.
Right. So it's the community thing wasn't necessarily something I was aware of. But I have gone to other people's chats. It's like being in another universe. And toxic. Like vicious, vitriolic. Sometimes racist. And it's like I come to my chat and people are sane, rational, they have arguments, they talk. And it's somewhere where I would be okay if my mom was in the chat. Now,
your mom is in the chat.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I will be okay with that. Because the people aren't fucking insane.
Well,
I think that's a reflection of me.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
I think I heard you talking to somebody else earlier in the week or late in last week saying that your people who are here conversing with you and watching you and engaging in these conversations are a direct reflection of you and the type of content that you put out.
If you want to know what you are like, look at your chat. Honestly, when HA started going after Hillary Clinton, and he started like just going ravaging Hillary Clinton over and over, and he was like, they're disgusting, they're nasty, they're evil. Well, his people got that way. Yeah. He got like 100,000 subscribers, but they were fucking vicious subscribers.
Yeah, and I do chat moderations like Monday through Friday when he's live. A lot of times, like while I'm working, I'll have like a separate window up, and people will at me, and like very, very infrequently do I have to do anything. Yeah. Like I'll engage and stuff like that, but people are like, I got blocked from here, or we blocked this person. I'm like, I am not blocking anybody. Like I've like somebody's calling somebody a cunt the other day, and I was like, you went a little too far on that one. But otherwise, it's usually pretty good discussion.
Okay, so let's go to the first one.
All right. CK Coney says he didn't know Jamal and Aisha were married.
Really?
Where you been? It'll be 9. Well, we've been married since 2016. Yeah. So it'll be 4 years in August that we've been married, and 9 years that we've been together in December.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay.
Sounds right.
Yes, Hunter, Mrs. Thomas was the moderator, and I am the only one as of right now. All right. So to get into the meat of the show, again, if you're a patron, log in and submit your topic suggestions. This one is from Andrew Carlson. Andrew, I apologize. I appreciate you writing all this, but we are not going to read all of this on the show. There's a lot, and there are multiple.
Yeah, man.
But thank you for the topics. And so he says, what would comprise a reparations bill or package in your opinion? He says the topic is coming up a lot recently, and I don't think you've set a vision of what that would look like. Your recent conversations have kind of swayed him.
Yeah.
And he thinks the country does need to atone, but he kind of wants to know,
like, what does it look like? Because I wasn't there either.
Like, right?
So I feel you, man. When I was swayed into this. This was funny. There were 2 white guys that pulled me into this. Bob, and there was another guy. But believe it or not, the Black Lives Matter thing is what triggered it for me. Like, when they argue defund the police, my first thought, well, why is the police there? Like, the argument of defund the police undermines this notion of your society created police to do a job. Whatever their job is, whether you think their job is good, bad, or indifferent, however you think they're doing their job, your society said, we're going to allocate resources to do a particular job because certain communities are just basically left in disrepute. And we're going to throw in cops to deal with it. And we're willing to spend a ton of money, billions of dollars on cops, billions of dollars on prisons, and we're willing to do that as a society. We're not willing to put that money in regards to making sure that those societies are not thrown away. Now, defund the police needs to get to the point of why are those societies overly policed? And I think you would get to the conclusion that a lot of this has to do with poverty. I can go through the stats. And the stats itself, it's so overwhelming. Like, black wealth to white wealth. Whites have 10 times the wealth of blacks. The income inequality gap has not moved, has not budged. In fact, blacks had more wealth back in the 60s than they do now Think about that. That means that it's not changing. But why would it change? Your gains from slavery, not to mention on, have been instantiated. Think of it this way. You had slavery, you had Jim Crow laws, you had redlining, and even when you got to the point of having this thing of like integration and whatnot, you were always integrated. Like it's the breaking of reality of sorts. But even with that, you still had a situation where blacks weren't held for certain jobs, they weren't allowed in certain communities, they weren't taken in for certain, like unions and whatnot. We were outside of this thing, and it allowed a certain degree of poverty to be instantiated in that very community. I mean, if you're not allowed to get a job that pays well, where are you going to work? If you're not...
I also think that you need to have the conversation about land and
Right.
property.
Yes.
That's a big deal, too.
Right.
Especially going back as far back as it has gone. You know what I mean?
Right. But that's my point. Like, you're going all the way up into like the 70s and the 80s where your income gap, your jobs, your all of these things in society that you basically controlled because of the way your history is going has been now filled in. And now it's like, all right, you guys should be up faster than what you are. Well, I can look at the statistics and say we're not. And I can show why we're not. And it makes all the sense in the world that wealth grows, and if you don't have any wealth, it's not going to go anywhere. 176,000 for whites as an average wealth compared to 18,000 for blacks. Oh, that's abysmal. That's abysmal. And when you get into like people without a degree, that number gets that much worse. And understand what this means. And understand the amount of problems and the amount of resources you expend just to keep society the way society is. Meaning, just this much chaos still costs you money. When you see these cops abusing and beating people, that's an artifact of what you allow in regards to your society and leaving those societies or those communities behind. And put it in real terms. You can look at all of the outcomes. So you can see life expectancy is lower in those communities. You can see infant mortality rates among blacks abysmally low. The number of people that are shot by cops, ridiculously high. The number of people who are put in prison for longer sentences, abysmally high. But the income thing is the thing that really gets at me, because that's the thing where I can say, well, look, if those communities were better, and if you had filled those communities out in the 60s, by the time we got to here, this would be a different world. Like, you can never deal with the racial issue unless you deal with the fact that you held a class of human beings as property. And that property was then considered less than a human being, and you kept that person in that position for centuries. You have to deal with that. You have to deal with the outcomes of that. And the country just never did. They're like, well, you're free, so, good luck. That's grossly unfair. And then at a certain point, it was like, well, we're far enough away from slavery where we don't need to do anything.
So what does a fix look like?
So a fix is unclear, believe it or not. I mean, because if we're talking about American descendants of slaves, okay, fair enough. We're going to send everybody who's a descendant of slave, a check? Does that really solve the issue? If you send a ton of money to people in very dirt poor communities, does that solve their issues? I don't know if money in and of itself does now, because you've had a community that's ensconced in poverty and whatnot. So it becomes somewhat complicated to pull yourself out of. But I would say those people need to be compensated. And I am not beyond this notion of sending people a check. The catch becomes, I don't know what that looks like entirely. Like, how much is the money? What does that look like? Is it over time? Is it a stipend? How does the wider community deal with that over time? Like, after affirmative action was in place, more white women use that than blacks. Did you know that? Yeah, it's true. More white women use affirmative action than blacks. But you still have whites like, those Negroes keep taking my space at work and at that job and all this other stuff. And then you still had this weird thing of, well, did I get this job because I earned it, or did I get this job because, like, those weird emotional complications come into play in trying to force that stuff. They've went into Congress with this notion of trying to figure out and study what does that look like. I don't think anybody entirely knows. I mean, in some cases you could say it's a check. In some cases you might say it's land. In some cases you could say, I tell you this though, if it's a check, inflation will go through the roof.
Right, and that's what, some people say, the 40 acres of a mule, what is that in today?
Yeah.
Like, monetized, like,
And
you know what I mean? Like,
everybody.
right.
That has
But
any triple black, you're going to have all sorts of people trying to find black in them.
one little driplet.
Yeah.
Jay Scott says, read From Here to Equality. It's based on reparation movements going back to 1900s.
Oh, cool.
I did actually save that. Meg
you,
is
Jay.
saying UBI for everyone gets rid of poverty and not something separate to
Race.
black.
Yeah.
Not.
But it doesn't change the income gap. That's the catch. Like, if you do something that is basically ubiquitous. And look, I'm not against that, right? Like, to me, cash in real terms, money isn't real. It's just not. Your society created this kind of weird system where a small number of people hoarded the resources and everybody else just kind of suffered and everything else. That doesn't have to exist that way. I mean, you have all the technological capability in the world to make sure that everybody on this planet has food, shelter, and everything else for a happy, prosperous life. And since life has no point, that could be the point if that's what you want it to be the point, human health and development. But we have this weird way of saying a fiat currency that has no tether and association at all to real resources are somehow precious and need to be hoarded in the hands of a 1%, as opposed to actually making sure that the people in your society has enough to function. Now, your society right now uses like the debt and everything else, but again, if money isn't necessarily real, you could have a stipend, meaning your society could be fundamentally different where enough resources are doled out to the various members of your community in addition to whatever they do in regards to work. But again, we're stuck in this one. And either way, you still can make an argument for it. I mean, consider the $600 extra that they gave them unemployment. Do you know that that leveled off poverty? Many of the people were making basic minimum wage. And so by giving those people $2 on top of it, you've basically given them more income than they would have typically gotten, which was just basically like $100 above minimum wage. How sad is that? Like, we're forcing people, that's $7.25 an hour, that's $13,000 a year. And we have people living on that level. That's mind-blowing that we allow that. And then we're shocked as shit that society has crime and whatnot. You realize crime is incentivized in areas where there's opportunity for gain. Meaning, in the way I live now, it is irrational for me to basically go on a crime spree because I have a wife, I have a dog, I have a house, and my opportunity to get anything out of that crime.
You have things to lose.
Right. Is in comparison to the things that I have to lose.
Right. You have nothing to lose. Or less,
The amount that you have to lose as you're trying to get food to put on your table, some kind of status thing because you're seeing, the measures of your society and the things that it values, well, it changes the equation. And in changing that equation, you may need to get drugs, meaning medication. You may need to get food. You may want to get something that you may need to sell in order to put ends and give your baby something to eat. I guess I'm saying right off the bat, in those communities, crime is incentivized because there's less to lose. The comparative advantage changes, in which case the crime becomes a rational act of a person who's basically trying to survive. If you want to eliminate that, you eliminate the basis of that, which is ensuring that those people have the things that they need. But I gotta be honest, I don't entirely know what that looks like. I do know that it starts by not having these people get this. $584 billion since the start of the pandemic. $6.5 trillion in household wealth has disappeared. Jeff Bezos is on pace to be a trillionaire. Think of how atrocious and disgusting that is. I mean, basically, you have a system where all of these people work and toil, and the cash is expropriated, basically to the top. And yet, all of the labor and everything else is done by human beings. The stores that people shop at are housed by human beings. The people who are shopping are human beings. The people who build their streets are human beings. the society that makes sure the air is clean, that educates the population. All of those things are things that we do, and yet they will stand there in blind admiration of themselves and scream, I did it on my own. You didn't do squat on your own. And the last thing is we should be allowing is that much wealth to go to that top. If you want to start about reparations, start by not allowing that. If you want to find money for it, that number is horrendous.
Oh, we got money.
Yeah, we have money for it. I mean, I'm for a UBI. And maybe the way to do reparations so people aren't necessarily angry is to have a UBI on top of the reparations. Meaning everybody gets it, but if you're a black of origin of so forth, and not refugees. Not refugees. That's different. They were never descendants of slaves. But in those, in the situation, basically saying, all right, we're going to give you more. Because my concern is that you're going to have a section of the population that may tacitly agree, but a lot of whites are in poverty too, and those whites are going to look at that and be pretty pissed off. Like, there are more white people on welfare than blacks. Now, in that situation with their poverty, it doesn't matter whether or not it is just to give reparations. You're still going to create consternation in the other class that is basically in your class that is white. What I mean by that is, you may say that they have no right to be angry. You may say they have no right to be upset. All of that is irrelevant. If they are, they are. And the catch becomes, do you want to ignore that or do you want to try to mitigate that? I would make the case that says a UBI across the board, in addition to additional money and resources for descendants of slaves. Because otherwise, there's no way to get rid of that wealth gap. That wealth gap just goes on in perpetuity. And look, like I said, if you're looking for the issues of poverty, the issues of crime, the issues of drug abuse, the issues of suicides, I would point there is your issue. And look, you deal with poverty, you automatically defund the cops. It just happens organically. It becomes less of a need, not to mention the prisons and everything else. The problem is you have a prison industrial complex that is going to resist any notion of having less people in your prisons. Yes, that's sick, but that is true. That's their business model. But otherwise, it's not entirely clear what that looks like. I mean, some people may say, okay, we're going to give free services. Like one governor said, I'm going to give free medical care to all blacks. And it's like, that's nice. It's just, it's just awkward, right?
Yeah.
But,
all right.
But I don't entirely know what it looks like, so I can't entirely answer that. I would be okay for a check, and I would be okay for, but see, when I say a check, I want it for everybody. I think it just causes less consternation if it's for everybody. With more for blacks.
All right, let me get on to the next topic.
Go for it.
Fred Edward, kind of along the same line where we're talking about wealth inequality, but Fred says the quickly approaching into the moratoriums on rent and mortgage payments, limited in scope, will expose millions to evictions and foreclosures. The 2008-2009 bailout permitted 5 million families to be kicked out of their homes. The 2020 stimulus gave Wall Street and big banks more than double the amount of the funds stolen under Obama. How we encourage the protest movements to expand their scope beyond the need to fully and aggressive police brutality is necessary at this time.
You're not gonna.
He says
you're not gonna have to force it.
The Poor People's Campaign has been working over a year to unite the 140 million people at or in poverty.
The Poor People's Campaign had too many people on their
Watching
stream.
that thing.
Oh man, I can't believe there was so many people. Look, you're not going to have to do anything. I mean, movements have a strength of their own, and as individual people, unless they can kind of seed it with an idea and let the idea bubble up, it's hard to kind of get control of the movement. I will say this though, if you're thinking of like the Yellow Vest movement, where you start off with one basic demand, rent. I mean, the car note, the car thing, the car tax. And then it becomes, no, fuck Macron. We want him to leave too. Meaning, it evolves. Now, the thing with the Black Lives Matter protests, the catch with that is they may be stick-to-itive to this notion of it being a black thing and be resistant to anything else, missing the point that the people who are going to be kicked out of their homes, many of those disproportionately are black. That's also a black thing, even though it's not necessarily being shot by cops. And the people who are going to go bankrupt almost immediately the moment that the government aren't giving them money is also a black thing because it's disproportionately affecting blacks. Again, I keep making the point that the issue is poverty. Also, millions. To put this in perspective, at 4.9% unemployment, I think there were 3.9 million evictions. I think this was like in 2018, if I remember correctly. We're at like 20% unemployment. What that number is going to look like. Think of what that means.
Yeah.
30% of the population in the United States was not able to pay their rent payment in June. 30%. That's with the rent stuff that the government was doing, the modest things that the government was doing to basically freeze the notion of evictions on those particular federal properties. But that didn't do anything for other people who are still suffering from that stuff, nor does it stop the rent payment, because that rent payment is still accruing. And those people, the moment that that money stops, are not going to have the money to pay whatever that thing accrued into. Millions will be thrown out of their houses. Full stop. Millions will be evicted. Ohio, I think it was last month, made the point that we will start evictions. We will be understanding and patient, something to that effect, but we will be kicking you out of your house. And that is going to happen to millions and millions of people all across the United States when they're no longer able to pay their rent and the government just does nothing. Yeah. He gets on stage and has all this bravado and everything else and basically says fuck all to everybody else who's basically in the population, who's millions. 40 million people lost their jobs. When FDR was going through the Great Depression, he tackled the Great Depression as if he was like an invading army was coming into the United States. He was pushing through Glass-Steagall. He was pushing through labor laws in order to make sure that workers could form unions, Social Security. He was fucking amazing on that front. He was pushing through stuff like as fast as he can get it through. And in doing so, having enough force to force people, even if they were against it. The packing the court thing. That comes from FDR because he was trying to put more people in the court to get his stuff through. They kept striking his stuff down. We didn't have that. That was a rational reaction. Despite the fact that we are gripped by something that has every magnitude and scale of the Great Depression, especially from the number of job losses, the number of people who are dead, the number of people who are at food banks right now or food courts. You have these long, long bread lines of people in California. At one point, you had 50% of California of working population had lost their jobs. And yet, the government does little to nothing. They do give trillions to the upper class, but from the standpoint of everybody else, kick rocks. Now, they have a reason for doing that. They want you to go back to work. They don't care if the situation is safe or not. They just want you to go back to work. And what they know is, if you get a pittance from the government, typically you get nothing from the government. And you, as an American, being used to nothing and considering yourself a rugged individual, may look at any failure of that stuff as a fault of your own and not necessarily a failure of your society to accommodate a pandemic.
John said, if you think the protests are bad now, wait till you have 30 million people wandering the streets hungry.
That's right. That's my point. Those people, when they go out there, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to lose everything. They've been throwing people out from insurance companies out of their homes.
Not to mention, COVID isn't gone.
It's not gone
all the way.
Not just not gone all the way. It's the numbers are increasing.
Wait. Trump said the numbers were going to go down because they're going to stop testing.
Yeah, that was I so didn't see that as being funny. 120,000 people have lost their lives, and Trump is on stage laughing about it,
and
talking about I want to slow down the testing because too many people were being tested.
That's one way to get the numbers to be less. If you test less, but I guess what I'm saying is you're throwing those people out on the street. They're going to be homeless and hungry amidst, a pandemic. COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, the homeless shelters are ripe with issues. Nursing homes are ripe with issues, and just the inhumanity of it. Look, lefties always look for this notion of a revolution. The president of the United States is basically the Romanovs. They don't see what's going on. They're just up there, and he is out of touch. And you have, millions of people still on the streets, and you're going to get people kicked out and evicted, which means that the energy that they have of anger already has a place. The form of it. It's one thing if the protests had not already formed. You would have to create something new. Right.
Yeah.
The protest's already there. The energy that they're going to infuse into that is going to be righteous rage and indignation.
The vehicle is already in motion. All they got to do is jump on.
Are they wrong for burning shit down?
Oh, you keep asking me these questions.
It's a fascinating question.
It's a complicated question.
All the violence that is visited upon a person, throughout this society, all this stress. And I'm saying this from somebody who lived in a situation where my mom would bring them like under like 18,000. And you're always in a situation of like lack. Like my kid needs to go to a thing and they need $40. I don't have the $40 to pay for that. My kid needs to do this. I don't have the money to pay for that. My kid needs to go to a doctor now. I need to pay these insurance bills. I need to do this. I need to do that. If you get a ticket, that's a catastrophe. If somebody is ill, that's a catastrophe. Anything that takes place, you're not going to have the money to deal with it. It's a catastrophe just by itself. That's stress. You wonder why you have so many suicides or so many infant mortality rates or kids who are not necessarily formed in the brain correctly because of the poverty level. It's that. It's an unnecessary thing that we do to members of our society. And people who are like Nancy Pelosi with $100 million don't get it. They can't possibly get it. They see it in this kind of objective way. You can hear it, but you don't necessarily get the violence that's visited on a person when they are ripped out of their homes and thrown into the streets. And the idea that person, how should that person respond to that? Your society has utterly and entirely failed you. They didn't do anything. Are you and the other people justified in getting your rage and indignation at the violence that you feel the society has visited upon you back on a society that basically did it and stood by while it happened? Those questions are fascinating to me because we never accept this notion that we are doing violence to people just in the very act of throwing them out of their houses. I tell you this, they didn't want to be out their houses. Yeah. And the person who is going to be standing there is going to be a cop that is going to be willing to shoot, tase, beat,
somebody
take to jail.
Just said that evictions are another form of police brutality.
Yeah, I mean, you're dragging you out of your house. I mean, let's be honest. And this is going to take place to millions of human beings all across the United States, and the government is going to stand by and do nothing. Those people are going to be out on the streets just like the people who are basically dirt poor now because the government is also going to stop their payments. And yeah, the protests are going to expand. I honestly believe that they're going to organically just kind of evolve into this notion of poverty. It has to. I don't know where else it goes from the police, defund the police stuff. If you're trying to encompass all of that, and you want to deal with the African American issue, the white issue, all the stuff, all of these people, that's your broad stroke. I hope that he's right, and I think it might.
All right, on to the next topic. What we were talking about, government. Let's talk about the president.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is a funny one.
Go for it.
I think this is funny, kind of a jokey one. But Sean Lancaster said, in the future, Joe Biden is president. We have endless war, corporate monopoly, and martial law. Progressives build a...
martial law. Go ahead. What's on martial law?
Progressives build a time machine to send one person back in time to stop Biden's election. They choose at random. It's Sam Cedar.
Oh, fuck.
He goes back in time to today, June 21st, 2020. Future Sam tells present Sam that voting for one concentration camp less led to everyone in concentration camps. Future Sam says don't vote for Biden. Jamal Thomas was right. Kim Iverson was right. Crystal Ball was right. Jimmy Dore was right. Anna Kasparian was wrong. Bitch Boy Brooks was wrong. I'm reading this entire thing. Bitch Boy Brooks was wrong. Emma Vigeland was wrong. Future Sam disintegrates. Question for you, Jamal.
What does Sam do?
Does President Sam continue to be a hack even after that?
Yes. I'm telling you, man. Joe Biden could pee in his cornflakes and stand there and watch him just like that, eating them. And then he'd laugh and say,
cornflakes are nasty anyway.
I peed in your cornflakes. Sam Cedar would still go and vote for Joe Biden. That's how bad it is. Joe Biden could slap Sam Cedar's kid. And he'd be very angry, but he will vote for Joe Biden. I am telling you, Joe Biden could do anything to Sam Cedar, and Sam Cedar will vote for Joe Biden. Short of saying I'm dropping out and supporting Donald Trump. And then he may not. But I just don't believe that. I think he'd probably say it's a trick or something. Like, a Trump bot sent something back in time to convince me that I don't know. I don't know if Sam Cedar does that.
I thought that one was funny.
It is funny. It is sad. Do you know, guess how many people are supporting Joe Biden in the latest poll? Meaning, of the people who are voting for Trump, 80% are backing Trump. The other percentage is voting against Joe Biden. How many are backing Joe Biden in that poll?
I'm sorry, I was reading comments. Ask me again.
How many people are backing Joe Biden in the presidential race? Meaning, For Trump, 80% of the people said, yes, I'm voting for Trump. 20% said, I'm voting against Joe Biden.
Oh, okay. So who's voting for Biden as opposed to voting against Trump?
Right.
Voting for Biden?
Voting for
no,
Biden.
No. The number of people that are voting against Trump
How many people
is much
are voting,
higher.
Okay, but what is the number?
What is the percentage?
For Joe Biden. Or you could say, what is the percentage that is voting against Donald Trump?
I think that the number of people voting against Trump, not for Biden, but against Trump, is the overwhelming majority of people who are voting for Biden.
What's the number?
Well, maybe not overwhelming. Okay, let's say 65%.
That's overwhelming.
I was going to say like 80%, but I don't think that's accurate. 65%.
70%, I think.
Oh, I was pretty close.
It's like 60-something, 70%. Like, that number is appalling. You know what that means? Like, that means that roughly 60% of people, and this has been this way in like 2 or 3 polls, that means that basically most people who are voting for Joe Biden has basically just accepted we're not going to get what we want. Blue no matter who. And yes, he's not, I can't make an affirmative case for him, but he's just not Trump. And that's what they're okay with. That's so sad. You're so sad. You're so sad. I'm not going to voter shame you. I'm just saying it's sad. I'm just asking you, why are you okay with that? Think about what that means. You're in the middle of a crisis, and you basically settled for somebody who said things will basically stay the same. That's who you're supporting. And they're going attacking Sanders, saying that Sanders need to con poor people into supporting Joe Biden. He's not being, he's being disunity. He's causing disunity because he's supporting down ballot candidates and not devoting his every waking moment to getting that decrepit asshole over the finish line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I don't want Trump to win, but I don't want Joe Biden to win either. And I have no dog in the hunt at this point. I mean, basically.
So what do you tell the people like Meg who's saying, so what's the option? She compares it to.
The option is to
she says she compares it to voting for Biden is like using a porta potty when you're out in public. You don't want to, but what else are you going to do, basically?
I disagree.
I think you're saying you got to shit yourself, Meg.
No, I disagree. No, look, for the longest time, for the last 40 years, your country and your media has basically convinced you that the only way for you to engage in the political space is through politics. And it's through the political arena. Now, keep in mind, your government is not real. Your political space is not real. All of these things are conceptual devices that we organize ourselves around and that we just kind of put enough belief into, and of these institutions that they stand up enough to have these elections and everything else. We accept this of sorts. As such, in real terms, there are other ways for you to assert liberty of sorts. And if you get to a point where the political system in no way is attending to your needs, because consider for the moment, there's no voting solution to get yourself out of this. Meaning voting for Joe Biden or voting for Trump, neither one solves the issues that those people are out in the streets fighting for. None. And so it's like there needs to be a realization at some point that this isn't working. That people, human beings, have other ways of asserting their liberties and taking that out outside of the political space. I would argue it's the way to do it. I've been arguing for this for months, if you remember. I kept saying, rip yourself from the political space and stand under this notion of policy and let that be your idea of force.
So maybe you write in.
No, I mean, it's not an issue of write in. It's more so, yes, you can write in, I suppose. I mean, or support an independent candidate or whatever. I'm supporting probably the Green Party candidate. I mean, but I'm trying to make the base, it's a larger point to it. If you're always willing to support blue no matter who, you lose all notions of credibility in your political process. You wonder why you have a Joe Biden. I'm telling you, it's because of blue no matter who, year after year after year after year, of you basically saying you have nowhere else to go and accepting that. Basically telling Hispanics, you got to vote for us because, the Republicans are going to deport you. Well, and blacks who are just terrified of the monsters in the other party. Well, you have a recipe for disaster that is all in that one tweet. Basically, 60% of people basically saying I'm voting against Trump, not Joe Biden. Like, how sad is that? I'm trying to make the point to you that the reason why that is like that is because for year after year after year, you've accepted whatever they gave you under this mantra of blue no matter who. And in doing so, any notion of credibility has been drained from your political process. At the exact same time that Democrats decided we're going to take a huge amount of cash and run fast and furious to the right. There is nothing objective that makes a Democrat a Democrat. They're just relative to what the Republican is. Meaning, as far as the Republican go to the right, the Democrats would just be least worse. And so you end up with an Obama who basically said, yes, I would be a Republican in the 80s. Or a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden. All of which are out of lockstep in regards to what the public actually have been screaming for and what the public wants. You wonder why you have ineffectual political leaders. It's blue no matter who. You wonder why Donald Trump is in that office. Blue no matter who. You have millions of people that have pulled themselves out of the political process. So people who would typically vote Democrat, people who are people of color, disproportionately don't vote. People who make $30,000 and under, again, people who you would think will be a Democratic constituency, often don't vote. They don't vote because they realize that what they want, what they need out of the political space is not given to them for the time that they would invest. You're losing. It doesn't matter the vote shamers. It doesn't matter the people who are saying blue no matter who, or that this is the thing that you need. Irrelevant. What's relevant is what actually happens in real terms. And what happens in real terms is you bleed out voters when those people realize that you're just marginally different than the Republican. On another point, your political momentum has moved drastically to the right. So much so, where your public has gotten so used to just this kind of incrementalism that when Sanders comes out and says we need Medicare for all, we need to get rid of student debt, we need to have free public schools in regards to colleges, we need to expand Social Security, wealth tax. These are policies American public totally agree with. Environmental policy, totally agree with. And then they choose Joe Biden. Because from the standpoint of electability, they didn't think that the public, in their head, in their conception, would choose that. Who keeps the monsters at bay? That's the black vote, right? And they looked at Sanders as being risky, in part because Joe Biden is just the typical creature that they always see, but also in part because those policies, those look like, I don't know if the public would accept those. Why? Because your public has gotten so ideologically deadened and its imagination is beaten to death by Democrats who basically failed miserably at their jobs. For fuck's sake, Bill Clinton was going to privatize Social Security if it wasn't for Monica Lewinsky. I mean, I hope you understand what I mean by this. I'm making the point to you that all of the policies that you want to get accomplished, when you subordinate yourself and have done so for all these many years, you have basically made sure that those policies will never come to pass. And not just come to pass, that they get worse, because basically you're supporting somebody who in no way represents your interests and who will use your support to pursue their own interests. And that interest is proceeding to the right. The blue no matter who stuff, that's the problem with it. If they give you a very specific argument of, hey, Joe Biden has 2.5 testicles and Donald Trump just has 1.5, so he's better. Well, okay, yeah, Joe Biden has 2.5 testicles. That may be better under some standard. But if you look at this from the standpoint of the arc of time, it is a drastic difference where you see a radical momentum shift to the right. And that radical momentum shift to the right has everything to do with the unaccountability or the accountability that you've just drained from the process. The moment that you've allowed that argument of blue no matter who and any notion of an objective thing that would be a Democrat that you could support because you know that regardless of whatever else they'll support that thing, that vanished. There's a problem. You have basically, in the middle of a crisis, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Whereas Bernie Sanders, the guy who basically was the FDR for this crisis, pushed away by the first black president that gave 95% of the income to the top 1%. Yeah, your government is not going to do anything for this crisis. And my argument has always been, pull yourself out of the political space and stand under this idea of policy. Now, these people, in some respects, have done that. And the catch becomes, are they going to be willing to stand under this notion of policy instead? We're for Medicare for all. And make the basic argument. How do you justify, if Donald Trump is indeed the apocalypse, if Donald Trump is indeed shitting in the forest as opposed to the porta potty of Joe Biden, then how does Joe Biden justify not supporting Medicare for all when it has 88% support of Democrats? If that means he can unify the party and stop America from shitting in the woods? That's the argument that you always have to ask. You have to ask that everywhere. Just like that. Exact words, exact framing.
All right. I'm going to use that to segue. We were talking about government.
Bear in the woods. I was using
that wasn't.
She said shitting in the
No.
woods versus a porta potty.
No, shitting on yourself versus shitting on a porta potty.
Oh.
Not in the woods.
Fair enough.
All right, so this
same
is
difference.
This is gonna be my last one, and then I don't know if you're finishing, but I'm gonna be finished after this one.
What's the last one?
This last one from Andrew Carlson. Andrew Carlson put a lot on, but we are gonna do this last one, because it's kind of related, I think, on what you're saying. We did have one super chat. I'm sorry, I kept trying to say it. Ex hippie said, "Love you."
Thank you.
So thank you for the super chat. Andrew Carlson, thank you for the topic. Andrew says, do you think this country would ever be able to get beyond representational government? In my opinion, representational government has utterly failed. Having the few speak for the many has only led to rampant corruption and intractable politics that accomplishes nothing for the constituencies those representatives are meant to serve. We should be utilizing technology and logistics to increase the democratic powers of each citizen. Politics today, by design, has only achieved reducing a citizen's impact on politics.
I hate to tell you this. That's a feature, not a bug.
That's the way the system's designed.
It's
I think that's what he's
way.
trying to say.
I mean, the point of it, it was built that way. I mean, the goal of it wasn't necessarily to allow ease of use in regards to changing policy and whatnot. It was supposed to be cumbersome and complicated. Some of the problems that they had was basically they were rich. And if you give people the vote, those people are going to, if they're rational, take that vote and take the money from the rich because they would at that point have the governmental edifice to do so. And so part of this was we don't want the mob to be able to run the government. And so they were, it was a complicated thing. Like what you described is basically the point, not, whether or not we can get away from representative government or not. Maybe in a revolution. I mean, in the public,
it would take something like that.
It would take something massive. I mean, because people are so wedded to this particular government and this particular system. And if you're going to try to break that, every mechanism of government is going to resist that. Because that's what government is supposed to do. Government is supposed to be stick-to-it into itself. And when people are pushing their bodies and pushing themselves against it, well, the government is going to respond just by definition, right? Sometimes the people are trying to provoke a government response where they can over-respond, in which they can castigate the government for doing so. But in this case, it would take something massive. I mean, and the government would have to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that would be. If you're talking about some kind of revolution where people acknowledge and understand that the previous instances of America, and by the way, if that turned into this kind of opening of the books, I can't think of the name of it. There's a Russian word for it. It's not glasnost. Not glasnost is something else. But basically, where they opened the books and they started giving all of this information out about what the United States government was doing, empire and everything else, just coming clean. If they did that, man, that would be mind-blowing. But that's what you would do if you were talking about the previous government, because you would try to legitimize your own government as comparison to the criminal government that was there prior. And yeah, if that government recognizes that representative government was not giving people enough power and influence, they might.
Maybe.
But understand that's a war or something. Like that's something significant.
Monumental is going to have to happen.
I mean, I don't see the Congress voting to, get rid of their
Reduce
powers
their
as
own
some kind
part,
of parliamentary thing. Yeah, I don't see it. But it's not impossible. I mean, right now, you're going to have, 1 million people on the streets. You're going to have millions of people thrown out of their houses and roughly millions of people without health insurance. And millions of people who are probably going to go bankrupt after the government stops sending them funds, not to mention not being able to buy food or medicine or whatever else. Those people are going to be on the streets. I don't know what happens with that, especially with the government being unresponsive. And I would tell you this, if the response of Trump is to use force to try to push those people back, he's going to lose the optics of that, because he's already lost the optics of that. White people pretty much disagree with the way he's engaged the protesters. But beyond losing the optics of that, it's possible that he even loses what happens on the streets in his response. Meaning, they may gain in power and gain in the number of people who are coming out to protest just to push back on the fact of an over response by the government itself. I I gotta be honest, I'm very worried in an oddly optimistic way about what happens in July and August. I don't know. I mean, I think all sorts of hell is going to break loose. And I think the government is ill prepared to deal with it. And yes, there's no one to vote for in order to resolve that issue. Joe Biden is just going to keep the system basically the way it is. And that is not enough. I'm sorry. This is a moment where we should be thinking big and imaginative politics that deals with the main issues in a deep way and having those conversations and having those arguments. And Joe Biden is just sitting in his basement. Do you realize he only wants to have 3 debates?
He probably wants to have 0 debates.
Yeah. But he says, okay, we'll have 3 debates because, you're trailing, and so I don't want to have that much. He honestly admitted it. Like, look, I don't want to, you're trailing, so fuck you.
If I could just stay in the basement
Yeah,
until election day, please.
I mean, that's so fucking sad. Like, this is, like, because this allows him to basically say, fuck lefties. That's, I mean, basically. And by the way, for those people who blue no matter who, you realize that the further on you get with that, the worse your candidates get.
Right.
Because
you have no bargaining chips.
You have no bargaining chips.
You have no seat at the table. They have no reason whatsoever to give you anything.
When Ted Cruz is next, and you're going against Hillary Clinton again, and
you're going to be in the same.
You got to vote for Clinton.
Yeah, the lesser of two evils.
And then Tom Cotton, the one who wrote that New York Times, that unhinged piece in the New York Times, when he's next, then what are you going to do? Like, but you've allowed this. You realize that the Republicans, in part, have moved so far to the right because you've moved so far to the right also. There's not going to be a situation where Republicans say, okay, we agree with you on that. Let's just, run with it. They're going to move further. And so they're going to keep nudging and nudging and nudging. I'm just making the point that you fucked yourself royally. And for the people who do blue no matter who, you need at some point to have a standard. Is there anything about you where you say that's enough, too much? And if there's not, then are you really even a party? Think about what I'm asking you for the moment. Do you believe like all people should have health care and that you're willing to have that as a standard of whether or not you support a party or not? And if you don't have that standard, you realize that party basically could do anything. This is what you have as Democrats. This is why you have 60% of people supporting, saying, I just want to give it to Trump. I don't give a shit about Joe Biden. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing about him that's interesting or anything else. Joe Biden is not even pretending. He's just in his basement. And that's a disservice, honestly. Because that means that the notion of him running a real campaign to try to get support is basically, I don't have to do that because that's not the reason people are voting for me. I don't even have to go into debates with you because he will probably get bullied in those debates. But it's sad. It's unfortunate. But this is the United States. And, this gets to Sanders not fighting. Like, if Sanders unleashed that piece showing Joe Biden lying about civil rights and showing Joe Biden coming out saying, yeah, I did lie about civil rights. I have to be honest, I think that hurts. Like, and I say that because of Medicare for All. When Joe Biden was lying about the Social Security thing, that killed him in Iowa. When Sanders showed, this is him lying about that. He's lying to you. He's lying to you. Well, Joe Biden was a flagrant liar and habitual liar. And you had all sorts of content that you could have used that you decided not to use. You did a disservice to everybody that was donating you money. I wish you would have told me that you weren't going to have really any opposition research on Joe Biden or that you really weren't going to fight Joe Biden or you really weren't going to go after the party. I wish you would have told me that because I would have saved my time and my interests. Honestly.
I have a super chat.
Go for it.
Felina Farley, they were having conversations about, I guess, the Black Lives Matter chapter. Mm-hmm. And Felina, in response to that conversation, was just letting you guys know, thank you for the super chat, first of all, but just wanted to say that the Black Lives Matter Minnesota chapter is not part, daggone it, of National Black Lives Matter. National Green Party, co-chair leading, the National Green Party co-chair is leading this. Mm-hmm. Dems are hijacking the movement like Green New Deal.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to. I mean, there's another Black Lives Matter chapter. I think this one is in New York where the guy was getting money from and stuff.
I'm also feeling some kind of way because Black Lives Matter donations will go through Act Blue.
But see, I don't know if Act Blue, I know people say that, but I don't know if that's an entirely Democratic thing. I mean, is that...
I just know when you give campaign donations from the Democratic Party, they go through Act Blue.
That's true.
So it makes me feel icky.
Say for the moment, GoFundMe had Democratic donations. GoFundMe has everything else also. Would you be tainted by...
Don't say taint.
Would you would you be tainted by to use that if that was the case? Like, I guess I don't know that.
I don't know. That's what I said. It just kind of makes me feel icky.
Yeah, I don't know if Act Blue is I don't know.
Because people are asking like how to donate.
To the Black Lives Matter.
And it's like, ooh.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I put some links.
Somebody
at the
said
bottom.
donate to local.
Yeah, where you can know what's what.
Not to Black Lives Matter .com. Dilly Y'all 357, thank you for the super chat, says, why do we as the blacks get upset that Trump uses his black supporters as props when we freely and willingly allow Joe to do the same thing? Speak for yourself.
Oh yeah, speak for yourself. I've been raging about the tokenization of blacks on this channel. I mean, look at my old videos where I'm making a point of him lying about civil rights and lying about this and lying about that. I don't think I've made an issue with Trump using blacks as a prop because I think Trump is racist, and so I'm not shocked by that. I do make a point of Joe Biden because Joe Biden is the king of blacks. And if he's going to use blacks as props, I want to show the fact that he's using them as props, considering the fact that Floyd is basically murdered. And Joe Biden is uniquely culpable of every candidate that was on that stage with the exception of Amy Klobuchar. So, Amy Klobuchar was the one who allowed Derek Chauvin to walk after he killed and, after the killing, shot other people, which he went on to kill Floyd. And Chauvin, there's a story out about Chauvin. So they're not allowing black police officers or in the prison system to police Chauvin. Basically saying that we don't trust you. You guys are a liability because of your race. Now they filed a lawsuit basically saying that that's outrageous, and that you can't do that. Like, you can't say you're black, so I don't want you on the cell block because you can't control your emotions when you can't be a professional in dealing with this person. But that doesn't fly. I mean, for fuck's sake, when they have somebody who is white that is, let's say, killed a lot of people, wouldn't the same thing apply? You're a white person, you're dealing with another white person that fucked up royally and killed a lot of people. How do you deal with that person in and of itself? Take out the race. Like, I hope you understand what I mean. This person has done something vile. And whether you're white, black, gay, straight, or anything in between, you have to interact and deal with the person who's done something that's vile. So you were saying that a white person can deal with an inmate that is killed, raped, murdered, robbed, and everything in between, even in mass. But a black person can't control themselves when they're dealing with Chauvin. Get out of here. You've had white officers that had to deal with people who were blacks that kill whites. So do you prevent them from being on the same row? Can I, as an African American, say I don't want to be dealt with by a white officer because I don't trust his racial peculiarities or proclivities? No, I'm not going to get that right at all. And it's not right that they do that shit about race. Those men are professionals like anybody else. And in the same way that whites would have to deal with whites, blacks, gays, straight, everywhere in between, we don't think twice about it. Those people, those officers, are professionals and can deal with Chauvin. I don't accept that, if...
they can't keep their shit together.
Yeah, I don't accept that at all. Maybe they don't treat them great in the sense of, they're not going to maybe spit his food. I'm not saying they should. They might stick, dick in his mashed potatoes. Not saying that's great. I'm just saying that might happen. But
that's gross. Okay.
They are professionals. That's I'm teasing, of course, but they are professionals. And the notion that you can say that their race make them uniquely unable to control themselves in dealing with this person. Yeah. Get out of here. I don't accept that at all. If you want to put a heavier spotlight on it, fair enough. If you want to, but I will wager that those officers know that there's an emphasis on them in dealing with Chauvin that in and of itself is enough to prevent them from doing anything untoward. That's uncalled for. I read that, I was like, what? They're separating these people because of their race? How are you doing that? It's just...
What else you got on your paper over there? Because I'm finished.
I don't have anything on my paper.
All right, have a good night.
Any other?
I think that's all that was on my... I don't have a tweeter.
You don't have a tweeter? Okay. I think that's all then. Let me see.
Oh, wait. I need to know which one of these. 5 or 6? 5? Or 6?
Let's go with 5.
Okay.
So I can show you one thing of the CNN reporter that basically felt the same way I did. about Trump laughing and joking at the protests. I mean, at his rally of 6,000 people, not a million, 6,000 people. It was the sad sight of the overflow. The overflow is always funny to me, right? Because it's by definition overflow. It's
It means
like
you had too many people.
if I build a hammer, the purpose of the hammer is to nail or bang in an attacker. That's what it's for, right? If that hammer is paid for, built, but it's never used, it's sad. It's cosmically sad. Because by God's commission, that hammer was supposed to do a job. And that hammer never got to fulfill its potential as a hammer. Well, the same thing is true about things that we build, like overflow sections. That overflow section was there specifically because there were so many people that were there that its highest aspiration in life was to have those people. And the sad spectacle of being nothing. And then having the people just like, oh, you only have 6,000, huh? And then they're just rolling the overflow section up. So sad, so sad. But here is the White House defending Trump's language at that protest. Okay, you still can't hear that.
You just saw it outside. You saw these thugs that came along. These people call them protesters. They want to demolish our heritage. They want to defund and dissolve our police departments. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and a very tough, I've used the word on occasion, hombre. A very tough hombre is breaking into the window of a young woman whose husband is away. You want to save that beautiful heritage of ours. We have a great heritage. By the way, it's a disease, without question, has more names than any disease in history. I can name Kung Flu. I can name 19 different versions of names.
You, Tim, are in charge of communications for this campaign. Do you want it defined by racist comments?
Look, the president has been pretty clear and insistent that he was responding to China's accusation that the United States military somehow had something to do with the initial outbreak. And so he has been consistent all along in trying to make sure that people understand.
That's not what he said. And I don't know if you heard it, but we just played a lot of what he said during the event.
Just another version of trying to make sure that people understand that the origination of the coronavirus was the Wuhan province of China. And I know that it's not very popular in the liberal elite media to be able to pinpoint the location of it. They would rather ignore where it came from. But the president is not going to let that happen. And with regard to the beginning of that clip that you played, you don't think the CNN that it's
there was a part where he said something when he said there's so many names of it. It almost sounded like the crowd was like, oh,
I thought
like,
at one point
oh,
they might
too far, dude.
Yeah.
It was like
Ilhan Omar's dad just died, and Trump said Ilhan Omar wants to turn America into Somalia, like just racist stuff that he gives, like it throws out to the crowd.
Wow. And hombre comes through.
Kung Flu is bad. Kung Flu is bad. I mean, Kung Flu is bad because I know he's being specific to China. And he's trying to make this kind of thing, this political propaganda of trying to stick it with China. Look, I don't give a shit if the disease originated in China. So what? So the fuck what? I mean, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I think the thing is, Donald Trump doesn't want to own the 120,000 deaths and the 2 million people that are infected. And again, the deaths that keep rising every day, not to mention the number of infections rising every day. He just doesn't want to own it. He wants people to believe that somehow China is responsible. Now, the wild part about it is the public says, yes, China is in part responsible, but you too, motherfucker, are responsible. And so that...
You had obligations.
Yeah, you had obligations that you just utterly and entirely failed on completely. And the public gets it. The public gets it. So how he handled the coronavirus, failure. How he handled Black Lives Matter, failure. How he handled foreign policy, failure. The killing of Soleimani, they give him, I can't believe they agree with that shit. That's terrifying because that means the public and on foreign policy stuff is okay with murder. Trump had no justification for that murder. And yet he took that murder and chest thumped after he did so. I couldn't imagine for the moment if John Kerry was walking around somewhere and Iran put out a drone to basically kill John Kerry. What would the response of the United States be?
That's rough.
Even if Trump was in office, Trump would still lose his mind. Because basically, it's one thing if I say something about you. It's another thing if somebody outside of the country do something towards you like that. You're besmirching the reputation of the United States in order to keep its people safe. We will be apoplectic. It's hysterical, to put it mildly. We would, the rate at which this country would be geared up for war would be an understatement. Iran doesn't have the capacity to challenge the United States in that way, so it has to accept it. But think of the gangster, thuggish way in which foreign policy is being done with Donald Trump in that office. And I got to be honest, it wasn't all that much better with Obama. I mean, Obama got 500,000 people killed in Syria, thousands killed in Libya. I mean, you can buy a black slave in Libya for like $500.
Could you imagine if Obama got on stage and said something like the bad hombre breaking in or Kung Flu?
I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine.
I couldn't imagine it really any president saying something.
That's so
Jesus
unhinged.
Christ.
When he was on that stage and he was making those comments about I stopped or cut down on testing, 120,000 people died from this virus. So he's acting like, yeah, I mean, people were complaining about the testing and everything else. Are you fucking kidding me? 6 people on his Tulsa team got infected by COVID-19. Put that in perspective. And he's joking about it. Do you know 42% of the people that died from COVID-19 took place in 0.6% of the population? Think about that. 51,000 people from nursing homes, be it people who work there or the patients themselves, have died. 51,000 people. That represents 42% of all of the deaths of COVID-19. 0.6% of the population. How are you laughing about that? You have nursing homes that are throwing people out into the cold in order to make room for COVID-19 patients because they're more profitable. And Trump is on stage laughing and giggling. There's real pain that people are feeling as a result of this stuff. He's fucking around. I just don't find this funny. When he's joking on Joe Biden, I find humor in that. Not so much. I mean, you still have something that's going on that people are actually dying from. And I don't...
That's just racist.
And not to mention the racist stuff. It's just...
That's inappropriate.
Yeah. Kung Flu. Slightly funny, but real inappropriate.
Oh, that's right.
And then some bad
not funny for you on a stage as the president.
Yeah.
If you're sitting around, I mean, first of all, no, it's bad. It's
bad out of the way. And Trump is racist, so it's worse.
But there's some stuff, I guess, be racist.
You're trying to make the point that people can be
racist in private. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but I guess what I'm saying is,
if I know my wife is not racist, I don't care if she makes a racist joke. We have equal opportunity on that, be it for blacks and everything else.
I gotta be an example.
It's don't you have some African in your system? You should be able to climb that tree. That's pretty racist and hurtful, actually. She knows I'm mixed with Native. She knows I'm mixed part Native American. I'm always insecure about the level of blackness that's in my body. And I didn't have the ability to climb up the coconut tree. That was pretty racist. It just was. Accept it, because I don't think she's racist at heart. Bad hombre. Yeah, that's, it's funny. I guess the thing is, I don't want anybody who's racist saying racist shit. Basically, because it's spiteful. It's not coming from a place of any kind of humor or anything else, especially from other people who are dealing with that shit. And to be honest, it's a little, Kung Flu is just rough. That's just rough.
Meg said, not to be a geek, but it's not even a flu.
Yeah, right. I know, right? I know, right?
Meg, I don't know what you did. Every single one of your comments comes up under review.
Really?
Even if she's says,
pissed people off.
I don't know. It's a cold virus. Why is that flagged for review?
Yeah, she's pissed off the man.
They got you. You better scrub your cash or something, Meg, because they're looking at you. Right before we leave, though, I do have one last super chat from Frank Friel. I'm sorry, Frank.
Okay.
He says, way more than 2 million people were infected. People who weren't previously tested are coming up positive with antibodies now in droves. It might be 2 million in New York alone.
Yeah, it might be a lot of people. I mean, that's why that joke is so pathetic. Because if you're really trying to open the economy, you need to test as many people as possible so you can trace and track down.
Well, you wouldn't want the facts about it.
Right. Well, he didn't want the facts.
That's what
you have many
I'm saying.
of these hospitals that are trying to stop ICUs from publishing the information because they don't want the public to know how bad it is. Yeah, it's that bad. You have Cuomo, who Democrats are saying should replace Joe Biden at one point. Cuomo put in a provision that would block nursing homes from being legally liable for all of the deaths that have taken place in those nursing homes. He also shuffled people into the nursing homes and prevented testing of people when they got into those nursing homes if they came in relatively healthy. That's what, but that's the Democrat, right? It's just like the stuff that these people are doing, man. I always thought that in the middle of a crisis, I always had the question, like, if we were really in a crisis, would they fuck us over? Or would they have a come to Jesus and say, okay, things are so bad now, we have to actually get down to the nitty gritty and do real things for the population?
Those are the times where I feel like I don't have a good feeling about humanity.
My answer is no.
I feel like and maybe it's from watching too many like apocalyptic movies, but I always feel like in worst case scenario it's going to bring out the worst in people, not the best in people.
I think it's true on both terms. I think it's yes and no. I mean, the problem is, think of like a poor community, right? And if the entire world basically was under that guidelines of you have a lack and you need to get whatever you need. Well, what do? Your grandmother needs medicine. Let's say you had a kid, the kid needs medicine. Do you rip it off the elderly person if you think your kid is going to die? I mean, it's an honest question, right? Like, how do you be an ethical person if your society basically punishes people for being ethical people? And what I mean by that is if you're in a war zone and you're living in a huddle of a house of sorts, a bomb being bombed out or whatever, and you go out because you guys need food and you find an elderly couple. The man is injured. He has medicine on him. There's a grieving wife. Do you take the medicine off of his body, even if it means pushing off and potentially injuring the elderly person in order
for my kid to live?
For your kid to live.
Hillary Sandow says a crisis does not make dishonest men honest.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but I think a crisis doesn't necessarily do a lot for honest men either. You know what I mean?
I think, like on Star Trek, after Star Trek in the universe, it got to the point where the environment and everything else was cratering. And finally society said, okay, let's stop fucking around. And they had the potential for rational conversation in order to try to somehow save society and save the world, basically. I don't have the faith that we have that. At least not where we are now. I mean, if there's a revolution that tanks the government...
Wait. I can tell you now, we are not as good as the society on Star Trek.
No, we're not. That's my point. I mean, but the society on Star Trek...
like Star Trek.
But Star Trek wasn't always Star Trek. I mean, you had a society that was still at war, still in conflict, and those type of things. But all of that, for the most part, came to somewhat of a head when the environment started to break down. That's not happening here. I don't see it.
One more super chat, and then I'm leaving. Marcus Will. You're late, Marcus. Where you been?
Yeah.
Marcus says, so we are afraid of COVID-19 when it's a Trump rally?
What do you mean? It's 6,200. I'm not afraid of it. I don't care if they go to a Trump rally. That's on them. They're making a personal choice to be around each other who...
I'm not going anywhere.
Believe in that mass. Yeah.
All right.
Guys, I want to thank you all for joining us. You've seen me a lot today. 7 to 10. And then you've seen me at a few shows during the daytime, and now you've seen me here.
If you did not hear
hardest working man alive,
the beginning of today's segment of Contributor Appreciation, make sure that you go back and watch the beginning. We do go through the update and give you the details of Jamal's being broadcast now live 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern every weekday here, hosted by Radio Sputnik, but it is going to be streamed here through his channel. Him hosting Political Misfits at 12 to 2 is no longer taking place. So change your reminders. Be here 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern every weekday. Jamal and Shane Stranahan host Fault Lines every morning.
Flagship show. Radio Sputnik.
Go back to the beginning of this video and hear all about that. And make sure that you are subscribed. And even if you don't get the notification icon, hit the bell below and be here every morning or every weekday morning.
I will do my best to fill in for one Garland Nixon. I should not have this job in comparison to Garland. He got me on the network. And he's a good man. And, you know, he did an amazing job on Fault Lines.
Edwin Medina, yes, 105.5 FM if
That's
you're
it.
listening in the D.C., Maryland
Yeah, Washington,
area.
D.C. Yeah, he's a good guy. Did nothing wrong. And so it's unfortunate that he's off there. And it always burns a bit in doing the job because it feels weird to do the job, right? With Political Misfits, every morsel of that was basically me and Bob because we built it from scratch. And so this is kind of folding yourself into something that's already there and kind of feeling your way with the team and getting, you know, situated. Shane is awesome. And so Shane has been able to pick that stuff up on the fly. Bob has put good habits in me in working with him because when I first started, my framing of the world was in Fault Lines because that's what the show I first started on. And Bob was like, yeah, we got to set these shows up. We got to have scheduling. We got to do this. Like, all right. But Bob was a producer in one of the other shows. I was like, all right, do it. Fair enough. And it ended up being awesome. And so when I moved here, I was like, all right, we need to create a script. We got to do all this stuff because it helps organize your show. Like, it's just one of those things that you take with you. I would say that was vital and necessary for me to have any level of success to do this job. Like, it just was. It's one of those good traits. He was a producer, so it rubbed off. But no, Shane, they're good guys, man. I wish Political Misfits was good. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I think Bob and Michelle is going to take it. Michelle is bright, witty, extremely competent.
And her name literally is Witty.
Witty. Last name is Witty. So now she is extremely competent. I mean, many of the scripts she ends up writing for us, like segments and everything else. And she clearly has a point of view. She can defend that point of view. She should do absolutely fine as a host. And so, you know, hopefully they do well. But 7 to 12.
No, 7 to 10.
7 to 10. I am hoping to have a show from 12 to 2 called No Allegiances. Maybe I should call it Maximum Justice.
No.
That's what I should call it.
No.
And
Go back to...
Every monologue is just me giving justice to somebody.
Go back to the beginning of the video where we go through all the details. Don't go through all the details again. I got two super chats.
Details. It's just 7 to 10 Fault Lines, Monday through Friday.
Maggie Smith says, can I still get my mug?
Yes. Yes, she wants a mug. Yes.
I actually ordered that from a friend of mine who...
Did she get it yet? You give it to her?
No, not Maggie Smith. Maggie Smith was going to get a
t-shirt.
you
were supposed to give her a t-shirt. I have a t-shirt if she wants one.
You don't know what size Maggie Smith... Maggie, hit me up.
I have a small t-shirt.
I hit Maggie up on Patreon.
I have a small t-shirt, Maggie, if you wear small.
Maggie, do you want a size small or a size large?
Yes. Yeah, one or the other.
But that would be Political Misfits. Right. Do you want to wait until...
we got to get a Fault Line thing.
Fault Line stuff and No Allegiance and stuff goes together.
They're like, Jamal, you got to get rid of your...
No, I gave that to you as a gift, and that is still your first original.
But I can't have it like that.
No, you can't because it's not that show. I mean, you could do whatever the hell you want to do.
That was my baby that I had to leave.
So I think that's it. There was one other one. Marcus Will says, I just did a 3-hour show with Jamal. I was recovering.
I felt so bad.
Okay, come on. No. We're not getting into it.
We're not getting into it. I'm just saying. When I was asked, it was this kind of odd thing. I wanted to do both shows, but that wasn't necessarily tenable. But
that's too much going on.
Yeah, but you know, I felt an allegiance to both in an odd way. But 7 to 10 Fault Lines, we do a really good show.
Upstate Raider says, send him the cup.
Oh, he wants the cup. Yeah, we got to get new cups and new T-shirts. I mean, I have like a bunch of T-shirts for Political Misfits, and now.
That's okay.
I never thought I would be leaving Political Misfits.
Maggie Smith says she really likes the mug. Maggie, I'll get you one of these mugs. I got you. My girlfriend made it.
All right, guys. I'm going to end this here. I'm dragging ass. Like, share, and subscribe.
Have a good night. See you guys in the morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here for Fault Lines with Thomas and Shane Stranahan.
Yeah. Thomas and Stranahan. Oh, I have to get familiar with saying
that. Well, I was going to say Thomas and Stranahan, but somebody said something about Lee, and I wanted to just be clear that it's not Lee Stranahan.
It's
Shane Stranahan.
So it's like, that's the news. Fault Lines with Thomas and Stranahan.
Is that what you have written down?
I have to say, you're listening to Thomas and Stranahan.
Spell that. How did you write that down?
DRNT. It's like, that's the news. Fault Lines with Thomas. That's the news. Fault Line. You're listening to Thomas and Stranahan, and they hit the... Yeah. Because I kept waiting for it, and I was like, "Oh, then maybe."
What are you doing?
I was like, "Andre made me look like an asshole." Because the producer, like Andre, he hits the thing, like so, because he keeps track of the show, and so I was waiting for it, like, and never happened. I was like, "Fuck, he left me hanging." No, it was fine. But it's a very specific phrase. That's the news. You're listening to Fault Lines with Thomas and Stranahan. Yeah. So I'll get it straight tomorrow. Also, we got to get better at getting the breaks. Because we get into this weird situation where the guy's in the midst of the conversation. It's like, all right, we need to stop you right now. I want to thank you for coming on our show. It's like, fuck. And it's like you get the guy, like, that was my fault in a few times because I would ask a question. It would be a question. It's like, all right, you have 30 seconds to answer this 5-minute question. And so it was like, you have to stop the guy. It's like, yeah, we'll welcome you back to the show. We can talk about blah, 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 blah. But no, it was good. We did well. Shane did extremely well. I think we had a good show, man.
You're right, Maggie. We are still misfits.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Like, share, and subscribe.
Have a good night.